Okay.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this lifestyle radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefer?
Yeah, man.
I mean, that cat's high.
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello, we are back, and welcome to the Reefer Reporters. That's what happens when you're on live stuff. Things do happen. We are your audio digest of Canadian and international cannabis news, and Kim and we are going to discuss the news that came out during the week of May the 1st to the 7th, 2018. Well, Kim,
Back again, Al. Still sore from the GMMs, exhausted. It takes me longer every year to recuperate from the day's events.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean. You know, like during the GMM in Toronto, they also had the Sensible Ontario rally that was in another, I'm going to say another park or the other end of the park, and I had to go around some big legislation building, and I just said, I'm just too sore, man.
Yeah, man, it's hard. It's a tough deal getting out there every year and covering all of these cannabis-related events and protests that are taking place across the country. Most of us that are out there are patient advocates. We're out there for a reason because we are patients and we understand the stigma that we all carry for using cannabis medication, and that's why we do what we do. But as patients, we all have illnesses. We all have issues that we're dealing with, pain levels that we're dealing with. It's an extremely difficult gig for sure.
Oh, yes, yeah, for sure. And then to be involved in walking a distance within a rally so that you're out there, your voice is being heard. You got to do a little bit of walking, and it ends up costing you by the end of the day, but
Yeah. But we manage to do it every year. We continue, we carry on, as we all did once again this year. As you said, from across the country, people marched en masse to their local establishments, their local city halls and parliament buildings, police stations, and so forth across the country. We had one here in Timmins for the very first time. We had a GMM, and it was the first annual event. It will take place every year here in Timmins with the committee's help. We marched on to the Timmins local city police department headquarters, and then on to City Hall, and then back to the park. Pretty good turnout, just under 24 people. Not too bad for the first event in a small town.
Yeah, you had a bit of turnout for your 420, but like you say, it's first turnout, and for your 420, did you have a march?
No, the 420 was just a simple gathering en masse in the park. And I think that's a lot more attractive to many people. They hear that you're marching onto City Hall or onto local police headquarters, and they're like, I really don't want to do that. I'll come and support you in the park, off the beaten path in the middle of nowhere where nobody's around, but I ain't marching to the police station. So you get a lot of that. People aren't quite ready for those kind of steps yet. We only had one other protest here that's ever happened here in this town, and that was 3 weeks ago. So it'll take time to build the masses, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, I know I attended the one in Toronto, and actually there was a live broadcast here at lifestyleradio.net. It's now available as podcast. It's almost 4 hours long. It's over 3 hours long anyways.
Yeah.
Interviews during the march in the downtown, interviews with different of the vendors that were at the park. The park this year was under construction, so we only had access to part of it. It made the roadways along where the vendors were a crowded area, but it's still, we're family. We don't mind being a little close.
That's it. We'll get along. We'll figure it out as we go. I mean, these protests take place worldwide.
Yeah.
It is a global event. Over 80 countries worldwide take part in the GMMs every year, and there's no issues within the community and within the marches themselves. They are all issue free.
Yeah, I know the one in Toronto again. Once again, it was issue free. As far as you talk about global, Toronto attracted people from other places. There was people there from British Columbia.
Yep.
During the march, I just happened to start talking to a guy, and he points to my sweater and he says, "Oh, I've been on the radio show," and he points at my Pace Radio Show logo on the front of my hoodie.
Oh,
and,
nice!
Yeah, and it turns out that he was a past guest on the show, one of Elise's guests. Michael from Best Buds in Saskatchewan.
Oh, cool. Oh,
yeah.
Cool. Nice meeting them in person. I mean, that's awesome. The community, the masses coming together at these places. It's a chance to meet people face to face, see new products in use, what's out there, find new ways of consumption that are easier for patients to consume. So much education happens at these events as well, for patients as well as non-patients alike.
Yeah, well, Julia Rose, she was there. I haven't seen her for like 5 years. I was surprised to hear. So there was representatives from the U.S., B.C., Saskatchewan, obviously Ontario, we're all there. So it almost had a global feeling, I guess, eh?
Yeah, for sure. Well, most years I attend the GMMs in Toronto, so I also have a northern participation as well. But I know many from the north that attend every year down from Sudbury and the Sioux that attend the GMMs in Toronto every year as well.
Yeah, and vendors like dabs, ounces, baked goods, suckers. It was just rows and rows and endless. It was I don't know. I didn't get to count all the vendors, but I bet you there was over 50 or 60 of them easily.
Wow, I missed it this year. I'm sad that I couldn't be there, but I was excited to participate in a new town, and I hope it continues in other towns.
Well, way to go. Congratulations. You got something started. That's where it starts. Somebody has to start it. And talking about starting, let's get on with some more news other than just the GMMs.
Yeah, we could talk about that all day for sure.
Yeah, I know we could.
Other stuff that we can talk about, like continued criminalization, which is what we're protesting about.
Yes, exactly. The question is at iPolitics, Cannabis Act, would it further criminalize some cannabis users? That's what the committee is hearing.
Yeah, they're saying to illustrate the absurdity of marijuana criminalization. Spratt said that he has had clients who are routinely turned away from the American border because of small marijuana offenses some decades ago. But I have clients who are convicted of manslaughter who make it through the border no problem.
Yes, exactly. And it says here that Canadians are not nearly informed enough about this legislation. Canadians believe that the legislation will legalize cannabis, but it would only on some very limited non-criminal exceptions. Example, or reduce, your 30 grams. If you have more than 30 grams, it's going to be a criminal
criminal offense, and you're wind up back
right
with a criminal record.
You're growing 6 plants. Yeah, you're growing 6 plants instead of 4. Yeah. So there's still lots of criminalization behind the legalization of cannabis.
Absolutely. You can get up to 14 years in jail still with legalization. In many people's minds, that is not legalization at all if it still comes with a criminal penalty.
Oh, yes. Oh, I can tell you, just even from being at the Global Marijuana March, there's all different kinds of views of what legalization means. Some people look at legalization should be legal as tomatoes, whereas some people, they're talking legalization as tax and regulation.
Yeah. Well, according to this latest panel, large groups of vulnerable groups of people, the underprivileged and minority groups will still be swept up in criminal courts, and it will still continue to overburden the justice system.
Yeah, exactly. The bill will also discriminate against young people, underprivileged people, and permanent residents who would be put at higher risk for being deported.
Yep. So, I mean, we face deportation issues right here in Canada. That's not, just isolated in the United States.
Yeah, well, Michael Spratt of the Criminal Lawyers Association, he says punishing young people criminally for something that is legal for adults should be found to be unconstitutional.
Yeah, absolutely. So issues continue with the new bill and with legalization. Many opponents for it saying it's not legalization at all. I checked this article out in iPolitics.
Yeah, Lisa Johnson, who touched on that issue for them.
Yeah, for sure. And from there, we're going to talk more about legalization, and we're going to talk about the Senate once again.
And we keep bringing the Senate up because that's where the bill is. Yep. And right now, Kim, they're talking about wanting to ban the growing of cannabis. This is the senators, the conservative side of the senators, I believe.
Yeah, they're starting to listen to provinces like Quebec who have strong issues and are strongly opposed to the growing of cannabis. And they want, in the province of Quebec, they want to be able to put a moratorium on that and disallow it. But the feds are saying if it's legal federally, they're not going to be allowed to do that. So it seems that the Quebecers and some other people are starting to sway some of the senators right now.
Yeah, the Intergovernmental Affairs Minister, Jean-Marc Fourier, I believe he's from Quebec, presented his arguments to the committee a while back, and he was able to convince the senators of the Standing Committee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs that the provinces should have full constitutional jurisdiction. I knew I'd get that word wrong.
Jurisdiction.
Over the home growing end of things.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a plant here once again. I don't understand the uproar over this. It's a plant. It's like any other plant. And we're talking about a maximum of 4. That's not enough to be detrimental harm to any given household.
Yeah. And you would have to think federal law will overrule the provincial law in the end.
It absolutely has to. You can't have something that's legal nationwide be disallowed in a particular province. It's got to be found to be unconstitutional, for sure.
Yeah, well, we'll see as it travels through the courts. And, as you and I discussed this past week on the Pace Radio show, the real estate people, they're talking about wanting it's Canadian Real Estate Association. They want to ban it as well.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to ban it. The real estate board is saying that it'll be detrimental to their households and it'll cause damage to property, this, that, and the other thing. I've said this time and time again. I've gone into people's houses that are plant enthusiasts, should we say. And we're talking about regular house plants here. Yucca trees and aloe vera plants and, the climbing ivies and all of these various house plants. And they're literal jungles in these people's homes. You haven't got 2 inches of space that doesn't have a leaf sitting on it somewhere.
Yeah.
They cause far more damage to property and to homes than 4 cannabis plants would cause. Growing 4 cannabis plants, most people are going to put them in some sort of a tent because they're going to want to get the best plant out of their grow up that they can possibly get. So they're going to take the proper steps, much like we do with hydroponics. Many people have these little tents in their apartments now. They're growing tomatoes, vegetables of all kinds, lettuce and cucumbers and all kinds of stuff because we're more concerned about what we're putting into our bodies. Cannabis should be no different than those plants. There is no need for extra regulations on these.
Yeah. Well, the Canadian Real Estate Association is proposing that to make an amendment so that the regulations would result in a halt of home cultivation for recreational purposes until provinces can enact new regulations.
Yeah, and once again, with more regulations, we're being regulated up the wazoo. I'm going to quote Kurt Tusaw once again on this article. Every one of the aspects and the supposed risks that is argued in these so-called proposals from the Real Estate Board and others that are opposed to home growing have all been disputed and disproven to a federal judge's satisfaction in the Allard case. You can burn houses down with stoves, which is the leading cause of house fires in this country. Is the response to ban the stove? Of course not. That would be absurd. So why is it not absurd for the same situation for cannabis?
Yeah, well, one of the senators pointed out that the task force on that did all this evaluation on the task force on legalization and regulation of cannabis received 30,000 submissions. 92% of those 30,000 submissions supported home cultivation.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the general public at large and anybody with an ounce of knowledge on growing a cannabis plant and how similar it is to growing any other house plant knows that it's a ludicrous idea to put a ban on them. It's a weed, for God's sake.
Yes, exactly. And they've also, the Liberals have just recently mentioned in the news that they're still pushing through this date. They're not looking at backing off anything. You know, they can continue discussions with groups afterwards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But they are wholeheartedly agreed that this is going to happen on this date, and discussions can continue, but we're going through with the proposal the way it's written.
As we mentioned before, June 7th will be when the Senate votes on it. Fully expect amendments will be presented, and at that point it has to go back to the House of Commons. Hopefully they get it all dealt with and changed before summer recess. Otherwise it wouldn't be voted on until the fall, and it wouldn't become... Probably with their 3-month delay, you're looking at Christmas.
Yeah. They could also demand that the bill die on the table if it doesn't pass final reading. It has to be reintroduced in the new legislature in September.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they don't prorogue to end anything.
Yeah.
Like this. Mind you, the government can bring it back at the same stage, so even if they do prorogue. So. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move along here from growing to criminal records.
Yeah, criminal records that has caused many people hardship over the years with jobs, family, travel, losing children, all kinds of things. With legalization on the horizon, what happens with all of that?
Well, looks like the government has been saying for the last few months that they want to look at exposing some of those criminal records for cannabis for some of the people, but they say they can't do it until legalization occurs. And it's good to see that they're still talking about doing that in this latest article in the National Post. But my concern is they're only talking about possession. You know, somebody I know a fella who got busted for growing one plant.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to clear for possession, you have to clear for growing as well. People are also proponents of clearing people that are trafficking charges and that kind of thing. If you're running a dispensary and supplying a need, you are charged with trafficking, so they should be cleared as well. Yeah. All cannabis-related crimes that have convictions on your record, once cannabis legal, yeah, absolutely. They should be stricken from your record.
Yeah. Well, some people point out the fact that other convictions for laws from years ago that have now become legal, people convicted of all types of things have had their criminal records exposed. Why are we only looking at a certain portion?
That's right. If it's legal, if cannabis becomes legal, all cannabis records should be wiped out. It stands to reason. We've done it with everything else that has passed legalization, as you said. Why is this different? Once again, different set of rules, different set of standards applies just because we're talking about cannabis. I don't understand it. I can't wrap my head around why it's so different for this innocent plant.
Well, they say that there's 500,000 Canadians who have a record for simple possession. And for many of them, it's the only record they have. And I'm sure there is. I would think there'd be more than 500,000.
Yeah, I think that's a low ball estimate.
I agree. I agree completely.
Yeah, I think that's a low ball estimate for sure on the press's part. We've seen that happen time and time again with the press low balling estimates with different things. So yeah, that's modest to say the least. It affects thousands and thousands and thousands of people for sure. People can't cross the border, they can't travel. It's job related, all kinds of things, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. Well, this was one of these examples I was just talking about a minute ago. They say that Canada is already moving to expulge the records of people convicted of consensual same-sex activity. And they're getting rid of all those. Yeah. So why are we only getting rid of a few of the cannabis then?
That's right. One law, one people, one mind. It has to maintain the status quo as all other laws have maintained.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Unless I don't know. Is there a chance that they're just going to start with the simple position and maybe work their way along from there? I don't know.
I don't understand the reasoning for the slow hand.
Yeah.
I don't understand the reasoning, the logic or the reasoning behind it. I don't know why we would have to take it slow for clearing people's records. I understand the need to take it slow for bringing in legalization, but taking that same pace for clearing people's records does not make sense.
No. Well, are they looking at it as they're going to allow legalization of up to 30 grams in possession? So they're looking at a simple possession as under 30 grams, and those are the people who they're going to bring up, expose those records so it's equal to what the new law is.
Could be, I guess.
I don't know. So then they should expose people who got busted for growing some plants as well.
That's right. And then if that's the case, that should have happened for all patients long ago.
Oh, that's right. Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's sometimes it requires these things to get I guess a voice behind them when it comes to these things. The government has mentioned it, but up until now, I don't know of too many groups or organizations who have been pushing for this.
Yeah, well, it takes us screaming at our politicians to have our voices heard so that they reflect these feelings when they get to the House of Commons. So if we don't scream about it, they're not going to talk about it. So maybe it's another issue that we really need to push.
Yeah, I would think so. Well, I can tell you a group of Toronto lawyers, activists, and entrepreneurs have started something in here in Ontario, and it's called Campaign for Cannabis Amnesty.
Yes.
They say if the federal government is going to legalize cannabis, then it doesn't make sense for these with convictions to stay on people's records, according to their lawyer. Sorry, I can't just say the name.
I'll give it a shot. Anna Maria Enager.
There you go. Sorry about that. Good. I'm glad you gave it a try.
I probably slaughtered it to death, but I gave it a shot, and I apologize. Difficult name to pronounce. There's probably some silent letters in there we're unaware of. But look this up for sure on CBC News. Really great article. I like the efforts being put forth by this group. They're giving this issue a voice, which is what it needs.
Yes. Well, they launched their campaign at the Global Marijuana March on Saturday. And if you'd like to hear from them, we did interview them during the broadcast, and it is on the podcast, which is available at lifestyleradio.net.
Awesome. So look up for Anananjur. The group hopes to collect 5,000 signatures by the end of May, and she thinks that they have the potential to get over 1 million. So check out her podcast part on Lifestyle Radio, as well as this article in the CBC News, and sign on with this worthwhile campaign.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, according to a May 27 opinion poll conducted by the Globe and Mail and Nanos Research, they found that 62% of Canadians support or somewhat support the idea of issuing pardons for those convicted of cannabis for possession. But I imagine it's the way the question's asked. It probably wasn't asked. Would you pardon somebody who's been convicted of growing X amount of plants? That question probably wasn't asked. So.
Yeah, well, it's all in the way that they gear these questions, and
Right.
they do so to get a particular answer. We're all very well aware of the government's tactics when it comes to these polls.
Yeah. Well, you got to push. They got to, create a voice. And I know, like I said, they were down the Global Marijuana March talking. Let's see what else they got here. Hundreds of thousands of Canadians have been affected by marijuana prohibition laws, they say. 2016, the most recent year which the data was available, 58% of the drug-related offenses, that's 55,000 of 95,000 people, were related to this cannabis. And
Wow.
76% of those were for possession alone.
Can you imagine that? Like that for a plant. Unbelievable for people, having possession of a weed that is medicinal. Just horrendous numbers.
A sociology professor at the University of Toronto was the same as what you were talking about last week, and they were saying that they're involved in this campaign, but they say that the marijuana prohibition laws have just proportionately affected Indigenous people, blacks, and other minority groups. And that's what you were talking about last week?
Yeah, the Indigenous population in Northern Ontario are centered out big time. We had a man who left the reserve area. He was, within meters just coming off of the reserve area. He was pulled over and searched, and he was charged with possession of 28 grams of cannabis. In under 90 days, 30 grams is going to be legal. Why was he charged?
Yep, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, see how far they go, and hopefully this group, which involves lawyers, can improve on just a suggestion, make it reality, and even make it better than what the suggestion is.
Yep, absolutely. As she says, the continued criminalization of marijuana is a symbol of systemic racism in our country, and that's why we're asking for the government to erase these records.
Exactly. Actually, they were at the Global Marijuana March also, I believe. They were handing out grinders.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
So,
very cool.
All right. Let's move on from that.
Yeah.
To
soon talk about some vets.
Yeah, this is a bit of a follow-up. It's been a year since the government announced that they were going to reduce the amount of cannabis that they were going to cover for veterans. That took them from 10 grams a day, dropped them down to 3.
Yeah. Killer. Could you imagine being told, you take 10 oxys a day to cover your pain? Oh, well, the government's only going to pay for 3.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't go over well.
How can they do this? How can the government be dictating or mandating the cost or the quantity of somebody's prescribed medication? But they've done it. They've gotten away with it for a year, and it's not going well.
No, it's not going well. And here in the Globe and Mail article, they said that many said they tried to take their own lives in order to end painful spiral and relapse. Some followed through, including one veteran who killed himself with a steak knife just after 1 week on a lower dose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got people taking their lives, attempting to take their lives, vets that are relapsing back into full-blown PTSD episodes because the government needs to save some money.
Yeah. There's one fella, he just walks the streets all night long. He can't make eye contact with anybody. Yeah. He only leaves his home to go to the grocery store. Yeah. He says he hasn't been able to function.
Some of the interviews are just heartbreaking, what these people are going through. These are veterans people. These are the people that have gone to war to fight and to stand up for what the general population and our governments believe we should be fighting for. They're suffering now because of what they've gone through during wartime. and we're causing them more pain.
Yeah, that's what they're doing, causing them more pain by taking away their medication. They instead of taking, it saves a lot of money. People looked at, it costs a lot of money for their cannabis, but when they're not taking those other drugs, they're not forking out money for theirs. So one hand is paying out money, and the other hand is saving money.
Well, I think the larger issue is who is the government focused on that's getting this money? Is their main concern that the people that obtain the money from these vets' needs in the end be pharmaceutical companies, or are they concerned about vets having their choice of pain relief and symptom relief through natural therapy? It seems to me the bottom line is they're more concerned about who's getting the dollars.
Yeah, exactly. They talked to one doctor, Greg Passy. He's a Vancouver-based military veteran. He got a private practice, and he treats people with PTSD. He says if a person is consistently suicidal, normally you would give them antidepressants. You might add a second. They'll need something for sleep. So automatically you're prescribing 3 prescriptions. And then if they're overwhelmed with anxiety, you got to add another prescription. So now you got 4 prescriptions going at him, and he doesn't agree that that's the proper way to go.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. He said about half of his PTSD patients also suffer from chronic physical pain, which usually requires additional drugs on top of those. Yeah. I mean, before you know it, these guys are taking handfuls 3, 4, 5 times a day.
Yeah, and he's found that quite often when he talks to them about cannabis, cannabis ends up taking the place of those medications.
Yeah, so they can consume some cannabis. They don't have to take handfuls of pharmaceuticals 5 times a day, which is destroying their stomach, their kidneys, their intestines, all of the bodily functions that allow you to eat a regular diet, causing more health issues. Instead of doing all of those handfuls of pills, we can consume a natural plant which saves all of those problems, saves the drug company in the end money, or the managing company that is managing the funds for these people, save the money in the end. But no, we can't do it because cannabis is too expensive. How can that be?
Yeah, these are veterans. It's people who went and risked their lives, and you're going to worry about a few dollars. You're saving money somewhere else to compensate for the money that you're spending. Yeah. And they said that the veterans commonly complain that pill regimes do not provide relief for their symptoms and have side effects. Yep. They said that none of the pills worked. This one guy says, I had two handfuls of things I would take just so he could leave the house. He began to abuse opiates, crack, and cocaine, all to numb himself. Yeah. But then one day he tried to smoke a joint, and he says he was able to function normally. So imagine feeling normal.
I mean, imagine feeling normal. Fabian Henry is also mentioned in this article. We've had him on the show several times over the years as well. He's been a huge proponent of cannabis over the years and fighting for veterans' rights and that. And this is the new bill is affecting his life as well.
Oh, big time! I could just imagine. You see the list here in this article. What this guy's been through. He developed PTSD after a 2007 deployment to in Afghanistan. And unfortunately, responsible from his actions resulted in 2 deaths of his comrades. You don't have that on him. He was in Haiti after the earthquake there, and that turned into an ugly mess. He's got drunk driving and other things going on there, threatening. Just got so irritated from taking everything and the PTSD. Yeah, he snapped. Yeah, and he found cannabis.
Yeah,
and created a company.
Yeah, and it got him off of all of the drugs. He was taking over 9 pills a day. They were disagreeable to his mental state. He was in a spiral. Cannabis literally saved this man's life and got him away from a really bad road that he was on and other veterans face on a regular basis. And now the government is turning around saying, well, you found something that'll help you. Well, no, we're not paying for that. It's too expensive.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happened. Just too expensive.
It's too expensive. Turned around. But, your life wasn't worth anything.
Yeah. Oh, there's no medical proof that it's effective. Yeah. There's no research. I'm sorry.
Yeah, look up the studies. The studies are out there. They're overwhelmingly out there. They just have to be looked up.
I have a link on my website. It has over 30,000 links on that one particular link of information. So there's lots out there. And talking about research, should I just? I'll just let you take over on this one. I think it's got a bit of a...
This one really, really touches the nerve for me, Al. Ontario awards $300,000 research grant to help develop the world's first beer brewed from cannabis. Ontario, the province that is restricting us up the ass. We're not allowed consumption sites. We're getting restricted for home growing in our condominiums. LCBO only available product sales, no independent sales. Jail time for growing outside your numbered amounts. The list goes on the restrictions that Ontario has for consuming and regulating cannabis. Now we have literally thousands of scientists out there that want to prove efficacy and have studies done on what cannabis can do for us as a medicine. Governments everywhere, local, provincial, and federal, are saying there are not enough studies on cannabis as a medicine. But we're going to give $300,000 fucking dollars to the beer company? Are you fucking kidding me?
No, that's what they've gone and done. They've given $300,000 to a Toronto company that's going to work with Loyalist College in Belleville to develop a beer that is brewed from cannabis.
Oh, I'm enraged by this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like you say, there's lots of denial out there that cannabis is a medicine, and they're not willing to help fund that, but they're willing to fund companies beer. To make money, to make beer. Like I look at this as, I would hope it would be a different form of alcohol than the one that's already out there now that kills thousands of people.
I mean, my God, leave the beer or science to the private sector. Why the hell does the province of Ontario need to become involved in this enterprise? It is a waste of our taxpayers' dollars. It is a waste of our money. There is far enough of private enterprise that is looking into this already. It's an established industry in California already. The province of Ontario is throwing more of our hard-earned tax dollars at insignificant things that will only generate future profits for them and are not taking care of Ontario citizens. It seems that the rights of Canadians and the rights of Ontario citizens and what is best in our best interest are at the bottom of this government's list.
Yeah, it's. I'm just. When I saw this, I thought, why? And apparently, they join in with ventures, with industry and academic, in order to do these research.
I mean, we've got young scientists and long-time scientists in this province that are in universities and private enterprise across the country that are looking for funding to prove efficacy for cannabis as a medicine. Where's the funding for that?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. It's not showing up, obviously. Apparently the college also does this with the hop growers and craft breweries also.
Great. That's just wonderful news coming out of Ontario government. And with an election coming up, I'm sorry, but in my mind, it's time for a change.
Yeah. They say they're not going to call it beer. Beer is beer. This is going to be a cannabis beverage.
Yeah.
But they're not going to call it beer is beer, wine is wine, vodka is vodka. So what are they going to call this?
A cannabis beverage of some kind. Who the hell knows? They'll probably spend another $100,000 on coming up with a name and then a logo for it.
Yeah. Yes, they probably will.
Oh, I'm just angry about this. I have nothing else to say except fuck this shit.
All right, let's move on to the next article then. Well, let's look at something else, and maybe the government should fund our next story.
Absolutely. This one put a smile on my face. And after the last article, I definitely needed that. Loving this article all the way. Loving to see a little bit of canine mix going into some therapy for dogs.
Sure is. Yes, they are. They're going to do a cannabis-based clinical trial, which could help dogs deal with pain.
I think this is awesome. As a dog owner and an advocate for cannabis medicine, I can tell you firsthand, my dogs use cannabis medicine. I make treats out of CBD medication, oil that I make for my dogs, and they get those every day. My older dog that has cancer is also on a THC mix to fight her cancer. I'm a huge advocate for cannabis therapy for dogs. It does them a world of good.
Well, they're working with a veteran up in Essex to see how they're working on how to study. The study is to deal with CBD and how they can help our beloved dogs. So it's good to see a veteran, a veterinarian is getting involved in this.
Yeah, absolutely. We have anecdotal information from patients across the country and across the globe using cannabis with dogs. It helps with a lot of things, dementia, Alzheimer's. I can tell you firsthand that it helps my senior dog with both those things. Definitely top of the list for arthritis pain, seizure disorders that dogs may have. Of course, THC infusions help with cancer in all species, men and women and dogs alike. So we've got the evidence out there anecdotally through patients, but we don't have it on the books at a scientific level. So this is great to see.
Yes, it is. And they say that it's looking good because they say if the clinical trials continues to show positive results and gets approved by Health Canada, this could be a first cannabis-based product for veterinarians could prescribe to pets. So it could be on the market soon.
I love it. Canine CBD. I think it's fantastic, and hats off for the government for putting some money towards a study that is actually good for the future.
Yeah, and actually, they say they're using the CBD from hemp. It's not from the actual cannabis, like
hemp-derived CBD.
Yeah.
Now, hemp-derived CBD, that will test positive for THC. As we all know, hemp-derived all cannabis, whether even hemp, has such low quantities of THC that it's not going to do anything to you. But anything that if you're on a zero tolerance policy in your workplace or anything like that, even using a hemp-derived CBD, you will still test positive for THC, but very, very low levels.
Mm-hmm. Well, so far the study's looking good.
Yeah, and I think it's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah. They have to do. They said that they need to do 64 clinical trials before it can be sent off to Health Canada.
Yeah. So we'll be definitely keeping an eye on that.
Yeah.
And see what the College of Veterinarians of Ontario come up with on this.
Well, they say that they've completed about a third of those trials, and it is hopeful more animal owners apply if the dog fits the requirements. So, hey, there you go, dog owners.
Yeah.
The vet in Essex is looking for dogs to do this study.
So people in Essex or surrounding area, or anybody that's willing to make the trip, get in touch with this veterinarian for sure. They're looking for pet owners that would like to take part. And we finally got clinical trials on board. Let's get the animals that are needed to conclude this study.
Essex Animal Clinic, and the criteria is osteoarthritis in one limb has to be verified with an x-ray, weight between 20 and 80 pounds, and doesn't have any other health problems.
There you go. There's your criteria.
There you go. So give them a shout. Unfortunately, there's no phone number here. I can't hand that out. So. Okay, Kim. What do you say? We get ready for break?
Yeah, sounds
good. We've been going for
good.
a while. So.
We've been going for a while, and I think it's definitely dab time.
Yes, that's for sure. Okay, you want to give us a little teaser to your history moment after break?
Yeah, we're going to talk about raids and arrests.
All right. Okay, well, during the break, you're going to hear an old news report from CBS 5 in the USA about cannabis commercials that are being rejected. And that's right, being rejected. You would think they might not be rejected in legal places, but they are. And then after that, we'll be back after a visit to Marijuanaville. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here at lifestyleradio.net.
Tomorrow, CBS 5 will start running an ad that other stations have flat out refused to air. It calls on California to legalize and tax pot. The state sure needs the money, and as CBS 5 political editor Hank Plant shows us, the governor seems ready to talk.
Due to California's budget crisis.
It has to be the most unusual political ad of the year.
But the governor and legislature are ignoring millions of Californians who want to pay taxes. We're marijuana consumers. Instead of being treated like criminals for using a substance safer than alcohol, we want to pay our fair share. Taxes from California's marijuana industry could pay the salaries of 20,000 teachers. Isn't it time?
It features this Northern California woman who calls herself a marijuana consumer who uses pot legally to treat a medical condition. So why did she agree to star in the ad?
Primarily, it was the budget. I'm very concerned with the fact that our legislators cannot come to a conclusion on our, with our budget, and that our economy is going down the drain quick.
So she and others think the state should regulate and tax marijuana, estimating that it could bring in $1 billion a year. After all, they say, pot is California's largest cash crop.
This is a unique situation where there's a group of consumers who are saying, we want to be taxed. The conservatives have done these teabag parties, taxed enough already. We could do the opposite version here, not taxed enough already.
But not everyone is on board.
There are some things you can make money on. I guess if we legalized prostitution and taxed prostitution, we could make money. But is that what San Francisco wants to do? I never see anyone going into a pot club in a wheelchair or being carried in on a stretcher because they're so ill. In fact, they're rather healthy young people going in and out of these pot clubs.
Assemblyman Tom Amiano has already authored a bill that would legalize marijuana for adults and tax it at $50 an ounce. While in Oakland, ballots are being mailed in right now to increase the taxes that pot clubs pay. And as for the governor, well, he's had his own firsthand experience, as evidenced in the 1977 documentary Pumping Iron. Would he like to see pot completely legalized?
No, I think that it's not time for that, but I think it's time for debate. I think all of those ideas of creating extra revenues, I'm always for an open debate on it.
And now that debate is on thanks to this unusual new TV campaign. In San Francisco, Hank Plant, CBS News.
The marijuana advocacy group says the ad was rejected by KGO and KNTV here in the Bay Area and by KABC and KTTV in Los Angeles.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication? or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Marijuana. Then tune in and catch Pottawa with Russell Barth, who calls himself the world's angriest pothead. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham and joint host Kim Cooper and Alicia Yashishin. No week would be complete without tuning in to Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at lifestyleradio.net or at our sister site, 420radio.ca.
Blew out my bong pipe, ran out of Bud Light, but I found some stash I had hidden at home. Put it into a blender, and soon it will render these little fudge brownies that help me get stoned. Wasted away again in Marijuanaville. Come on, you guys.
After this. Okay, we're back after our quick medication session and quick gab. But now it's time for news with Kim.
Yeah.
History news with Kim.
Yeah, history moments this week. This week, moment in history, we're going to talk about some raids. Over the course of the last 4 decades or so, there have been numerous raids from coast to coast. From way back when police fatally shot Daniel Passe from Vancouver, during a small-time cannabis raid that took place out there. That was a tragedy that hopefully will never be repeated. Up until recently in 2014, when Darren Delaney and the Tripping Daisy in Kirkland Lake was raided for selling bongs. Right up to this past 12 months until, we had the Project Claudia raids, as well as Doug and Michelle Sikora face charges in BC for selling their wares to the general public today in Canada. Today in Canada, paraphernalia, bongs, pipes, and educational books on cannabis magazines are still on the books listed as banned. Many people are unaware of this, and that's why some of the raids continue. We have a long way to go still today. We have come a long way since the days of Daniel Passe, but there is still much left to do, which is why we continue to protest in events such as the GMMs, the 420s, and other events that take place across the globe throughout the year. So that's our moment in history, as a look back in history at raids that started with the death of Daniel Passe and continue today.
They threw concussion grenades? They got less than an ounce?
Yeah, less than an ounce a pot, and the man lost his life.
Wow.
Yeah, right in Canada.
Well, I know in some of those educational documentaries, they say the only person that's been killed by cannabis has been killed by a police officer.
Yeah, that's right.
This is an example of that. I'm not saying they haven't died other ways, but this is an example of that for sure.
It most certainly is.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you think, Kim? Is it time for us to get on the jet?
I think so. Let's take a cruise and do a dive.
All right.
Hey, man.
We'll be back in a bit.
Listen to the announcement.
Attention passengers. Boarding now, flight 420.
All right. Okay, we're back.
Back for a landing.
Back for a landing. We find ourselves in the USA.
We do. And we're looking at concussion treatments and possibly being the key for new research.
Correct. Yes, exactly. Because you got all kinds of concussions happening in different sports. The NFL just released a report recently that says despite rule changes and better equipment, concussions there rose 13% last year.
Yeah, big issue, in most sports and just everyday life, play, falling down. Concussions are a big issue. Finding new research techniques into them is exciting news for everybody. It's exciting news for the cannabis industry for sure, looking at CBD.
Yes, for sure. I see here that one of the past players, Mr. Nate Jackson, spent 6 years in the NFL. He's become a vocal advocate of therapeutic cannabis for the players there.
Yeah, he
But
says.
unfortunately, go ahead.
Yeah, he said. So unfortunately, THC is the boogeyman as far as the NFL goes, and because it's the thing that gets you high, but it's the thing that they test for, and it's the thing that scares everybody. But it's also the thing that helps.
Yes, it does. Jackson believes that 50% of current NFL players use cannabis medicinally, and because they feel that the alternative is just too risky.
Yeah, that's right. They're talking about pharmaceutical pills and stuff like that, and players later on in life have problems caused from them. So there are a lot of players are already self-medicating along with the rest of the general population.
Yeah, it's they see people getting addicted all the time. They're worrying about the players are worried about the opioid addiction, and the NFL is worried about cannabis. But this player here is saying that they get injected with anti-inflammatories the night before the game.
Yeah. So I mean, these guys are taking injections of all kinds of high-powered pharmaceutical drugs. What is that doing to their bodies and their internal systems over time and later on in life? These are these men's lives at stake. It should be up to them what they put in their body.
Yeah, and I can't see how cannabis is going to affect them in their game other than they're using it because it's against the rules.
Yeah. Well, once again, cannabis catching a bad rep in the NFL. The NFL has been looking at this issue for the last couple of years on and off and debating on whether or not they will allow cannabis and stop testing for cannabis. Let's hope studies like this will help guide them in the future, and hopefully they will be able to delist cannabis as one of the substances that they're testing for. On a side note about this study, I like the idea that they're looking at CBD as a medical benefit and everything, and the medicinal benefits of CBD. But I'd also like to point out a study from way back when, in March of 2015, that looked at the medicinal aspects of cannabis and separating and isolating the properties, such as THC, CBD, CBN, CBGs, and all of the others that are in there. And it came back very interestingly that the overwhelming science shows that a whole plant remedy, or the entourage effect of all of the components of the cannabis plant, are what works best rather than isolating the independent cannabinoids.
Yes, exactly. And because it needs both. We've talked about that in the past. Even a bit of one. Even if they're trying to eliminate THC, you can't take it all out, because then you start. Yeah.
Yeah, they work together. So there has to be some, even in hemp, there has to be some THC. Yes, they're low quantities, minuscule quantities that aren't going to cause a euphoric effect. They're not going to get anybody high. But they are there because they have to be there, because the plant works together.
Yes, exactly. And they're trying to produce a pharmaceutical pill that the players be able to take, but it's only going to have just that single cannabinoid in it.
That's it. And I don't think they're going to find the results that they're seeking by using a single cannabinoid therapy. The entourage effect is proven far superior to single cannabinoid use.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's, hopefully. See what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I hope the studies do continue. It's encouraging seeing them, but I hope they do take that into consideration with their study.
Yeah. Well, we'll find out over time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Because just the reason they're focusing on the CBDs because the National Institute of Health acknowledges that CBD contains neuroprotective and anti-inflammatory properties. And in the case of a concussion, the brain swells or inflames, and the theory is that CBD could trigger repair mechanisms in the brain to correct the swelling.
That's awesome. I mean, that's fantastic that they're looking at this. It's about time we have more studies done on stuff like this, on where cannabis can help, rather than just continually doing studies on trying to prove how bad it is, which has been the majority of them that have been done to date.
Yeah. Why would we want to spend $300,000 to help find out about concussions when we could spend it on beer, right?
We could spend it on beer. You know, we could spend it on beer. Jesus. Jeez. And then we go to other cannabis reporters around the world up in arms about so many different aspects of cannabis. And some of them are having their own issues themselves, in-house issues.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. This is a bit of a follow-up to last week. We talked about the Denver Post and the Cannabist and how it had turned into bots. Yeah, bots. Yeah. But during that discussion, we also mentioned that one of the guy who was behind the beginning of it, the founding editor, Ricardo Baca, was maybe looking at bringing it back.
Yeah, well, now apparently that seems to be the case. By the end of this week, Baca told Leafly that the letter of intent will be in the hands of the Post's owner shortly. It signals his intent to pay with some very well-curated investors an X number of dollars for the cannabis box. Baca said, with not releasing the amount that he's willing to pay for the publication.
Yeah, exactly. He just sort of mentioned about maybe doing something, and they said, "Hey, give us a letter of intent." A couple hours later, he heard back.
Yeah, he said, "Fine, you want a letter of intent? You got it." And he is on it, and he's hoping to purchase back the Cannabist, the one rag that he started from the beginning, and that they're now turning into a robot operation. He thinks that'll do the injustice to the mag, and he wants it back.
Yeah, he says, right now I'm contemplating what might be the best to guarantee a legitimate and successful future for the cannabis. But no matter who owns this, he says it needs to be an independent voice and an independent source of journalism that holds all sides accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. He's told his PR firm, press release suggested, but he stressed that he's exploring all available options, but it will more than likely be him.
Yeah. And he says that he tells Leafly that he says, I can't handle a world that doesn't have a cannabist.
That's it. And neither can we. We agree wholeheartedly, Mr. Baca. We wish you much success in your bid to revive this mag back to its rightful stand in the community.
Yes. Well, we'll see what happens. We'll update everybody as we go along.
Yeah, we'll keep you posted on the evolving story with the Cannabist.
Yes. We're talking about revolving story. This next one. Senator Sen Feinstein says she no longer opposes legal cannabis.
Talk about a flip-flop.
Yes, from my understanding, she was against it during the voting there in California, but the people have spoken.
So she says. Apparently she's another one that has decided that she's got some education and she's changed her stand. I'm happy to see it. I question the motives, but that's fine. I'll take out however I can get it at this point. It's nice to see somebody change their mind and go on the other way. Yeah,
well, as you know, we discussed this last week as well. There's a couple of senators that were putting a bill forward, a bipartisan bill. And she's looking at reviewing the bill and looking at supporting it.
Yeah, excellent to see from this senator in California. She did stand up against the bill, So it's a great turnaround. She said, although states made their own rules, recreational and medicinal marijuana, Attorney Jeff Sessions in January wrote a memo that rolled back the Obama-era guidance that federal laws would not be enforced in states that had legalized marijuana recreational use. Republican Senator Cory Gardner, a Republican from Colorado, which legalized pot in 2014, led efforts on a bill that would give decision-making power back to the states. Feinstein told McClatchy that she needed to review the bill before she could comment, but she was open to supporting it at this time.
Yeah, exactly, which is great. It's good to see it. Now, they're doing part of this bill, as it mentions the Jeff Sessions rolled back the Cole memo. But part of the reason behind this bill as well is because President Trump has come out and said that he believes the cannabis should be a state right.
Yeah.
So they're going to make them use
it.
Yeah. So they're going to say, hey, you said it. Here's the bill. Sign it.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're going to force the issue. It came out of his mouth. Now they're saying, well, put your money where your mouth is. You said it. Back up what you said. Stop Sessions from doing what he's doing. And it seems more senators are climbing on board with that.
Yeah, well, let's hopefully it goes through and allows more states to be able to legalize cannabis. Eventually, it'd be nice to get the federal end to change things.
Yeah.
But, there are some growing pains too, right?
Yes, there always are, aren't there?
There sure is. I know we're going to feel a lot of them here in Canada. But Oregon, they have had some problems because they have way too much cannabis. They can't smoke it.
Yeah, they oversupplied themselves. They licensed and legalized cannabis there, and they licensed a massive amount of producers for the production of the cannabis to be sold in the state. And I guess now they've got flooded with a supply. Everybody's harvested at the same time, and it's really dropped the price of cannabis in the state.
Yes, that's right. They say that they got enough to make 128 million eighths. I guess that would be what?
Half quarter.
I don't do,
half quarter.
Sorry, I don't deal with those things.
The half quarter.
128 million of them. Almost 3 times the amount of cannabis sold in Oregon last year alone.
Yeah. So they got enough. They got a 3-year supply.
Yeah. They're flooded with supply. Prices have dropped so much that dispensaries in the Portland area are selling cannabis for $4 a gram.
Yeah. Yeah. $4 a gram. But again, here we are in a situation where they're stacked with so much cannabis, they don't know what to do with it. But we have other states that are dry. If the federal moratorium was lifted on cannabis, that could easily be exported to another state.
Yeah. Well, they projected that there would be 800 to 1,200 businesses that would get their licenses. Well, it turns out there's 1,824.
Yeah, 1,824 cannabis-related businesses licenses have already been issued, including 981 production operations. Another 967 production licenses are in various stages of approval at this time by the state and could come online later this year.
Okay, let's look at this. Canada, did we break the 100 mark yet for the whole country?
For the entire country. Largest province that we have in the country, province of Ontario. We're going to have 40 stores.
Yeah, like holy, and these guys got 981 that are already in operation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's the same size as what? Ontario? Maybe not even. I think
not even. Yeah,
so,
I don't.
Yeah. There you go. They've got 981. We're going to have 40.
40. Well, no, this is 981 operations. That's producers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The province of Ontario, we got about 40 LPs. Sure. Yeah. I thought you were talking stores. I had stores in my head there.
Well, when we get legalization, we're going to have 40 stores in Ontario, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that should see how these numbers stack up. You know?
Well, they're talking about here how a lot of this is grown outside, and a lot of crop gets destroyed due to mold and mildew issues.
Yeah. Well, outdoor grows, you're not regulated like indoor grows. You don't have the climate control. You don't have control of the sterile environment. You've got weather aspects, pest aspects, all kinds of things that are interfering with your grow. Outdoor grow and indoor grow are two very different animals.
Yeah. Well, they say some of the businesses are getting phone calls from growers that say, "Hey, we got 500 pounds, or we got a ton. Can you get rid of this for us?"
Yeah, and nobody can take it. The demand remained high, but so fast they had hundreds more farms got their licenses all at once, and they wound up flooded.
Yeah. Well, I can see here they only need to pay $5,000 for a license.
Yeah.
Yeah, much cheaper than what we got here in Canada.
$5,000 for your license there. So, the little guy piled on board and said, well, I want in on this deal, and was able to participate. Unlike what we've got going on north of the border here, where you've got to pretty much be rich in order to even get a foot in the door.
They say that some of the phone calls from these growers, they're so desperate to sell their product. $100 per pound.
Yeah.
$100 per pound. They want to get rid of it so bad.
Yeah, they were looking at getting $2,400 per pound at one point, and now they're down to $100 a pound because they just want to recoup some funds that they put into growing it so that they can start again.
Yeah, and they've got all the surplus, and now they got some more probably going to be coming off.
Yep.
Yeah, and but I also see there's a negative end of this as well, as this article in The Guardian points out that some of the businesses are laying off people.
Yeah, 16 people are been laid off in one company, 7 people in another company. They're losing between $5,000 and $10,000 a month as a business on the whole. So layoffs are happening. So poor planning on the state's part. Over flooding any industry with any product will bring the price down. It will crash the market. It's not a good idea. So poor planning on the province or on the state's part. And in Canada, as we know, we've got the opposite happening. Poor planning on the province's part with not enough growers being licensed.
Maybe they could ship some of their cannabis up here.
Yeah. Well, this is it. Get rid of some of these federal regulations, and then exports become possible and problem solved, right?
That's right. Exactly. Well, let's head her off to our last story of the evening.
Yes, the very last one. Speaking of exports, export ourselves out to Jamaica, man, the home of red stripe and reggae.
Yes. Yeah. Well, there's part of the reason why people take a trip to Jamaica, but the other reasons, obviously, is because of their cannabis.
Yes, absolutely. Cannabis industry growing by leaps and bounds in Jamaica these days.
Yes, it has been. Recently, they have loosened their cannabis laws.
Yeah, and a lot of people tourists are traveling there now and openly looking for cannabis. And there's an article in this latest issue here that's going to give some lights on do's and don'ts on buying legally in Jamaica.
Yes, Forbes of all place. That's where this article, yeah. But they say that back in 2015, the Jamaican legislation forces put a stamp on approval of a measure to legalize cannabis for medical use. The law gives any visitor 18 and older the right to purchase cannabis as long as they have permission from a doctor. But unlike the stiff collar medical marijuana programs we have in most places in the States, Jamaica does not come with a plethora of restrictions.
That's right. And it says, for example, if an American has a medical marijuana recommendation signed by a doctor in Washington, they are permitted to purchase medical marijuana in Jamaica. The same goes for all medical marijuana states that have a clout on Jamaican soil.
That's right. it's good to know. That way when people go there, they can be able to purchase some cannabis. And they mentioned one of the places here, Kaya Farms, which is located near St. Anne's, that they have a medical cannabis complex. They opened in March. Yep.
Yeah, very, very cool. Kaya is the first medical cannabis brand from the Caribbean, which combines a variety of partnerships and brands which complement each other, say the company. And it's primarily focused on the health and wellness tourism industry.
Yeah. So, like there's places like that. I'm sure there's lots of other places where cannabis can be picked up in Jamaica. But, it's a wellness tourism industry.
Yeah, and if you don't have a medical exemption, if you're American and you do not have a medical exemption from a legal state, or you're Canadian and you do not have a medical prescription, you can also visit Kaya Farms, and they have a doctor on site, and they can provide visitors with the needed documentation to buy legal cannabis while you're on the island.
That's right. You don't need to fake that you've got MS or cancer or any other life-threatening condition to qualify. Just simply discuss that you got a history of anxiety or chronic pain or something, because a lot of us are dealing with chronic pain.
Yeah.
We'll probably do the trick.
Yeah, any kind of mild health condition will qualify under their regs there to give you an exemption and provide you with medicinal cannabis while you're visiting Jamaica. It's great to see these kinds of industries springing up over there.
Yeah, exactly. Although marijuana or cannabis is not legal for non-residents, that's, you and I.
Yeah.
For any other reason than medicine, the law allows the locals to grow up to 4 plants at their home for personal use.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you don't want to take the steps and go to visit somebody at Kaya or another doctor while you're there and get your medical exemption, there's more than likely numerous supply of cannabis available from whoever resort you're staying at. Talk to your bellman, your maid, your front desk guy. Somebody will be able to hook you up.
Oh, I'm sure. And if you caught here, the worst that can happen is you get caught with illegal cannabis, no more than 2 ounces anyways, is a slap with a small fine of around $5.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're on vacation in Jamaica. Chances are you got $5. You pay your fine and you carry on. It's not going to carry with you back home or anything like that. The laws are being loosened more and more all the time. The evolution of Jamaican law will continue, I'm sure, and will someday soon also involve the non-medicinal market.
Yes. Oh, I'm sure it will. Well, Kim, that's the end of the stories we got listed here.
It is, and we covered quite a bit. We were across the globe. We had a lot of stories once again this week. So hard to get them all narrowed down. We get in as much as we can.
That's right, we do. And I see that every time we do that, it gets a little longer.
It's a little bit longer every time, I know. Thanks for tuning in and staying with us, and I hope you enjoyed today's Reefer's Reporter.
Yeah, that's right. That's our Reefer Report for the 1st of May to the 7th of May of 2018. In closing, we'd like to say thank you for listening to our broadcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, relatives, and strangers. Until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, do not incarcerate.
Catch you later.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.